I wasn't supposed to be home that weekend. I'd booked a trip with my coworkers, some hiking thing up in the Catskills, but bailed last minute after waking up with a headache and a sudden urge to just be alone. I didn't tell anyone I stayed back, not even my roommate, which is why I was completely unprepared when I walked into the kitchen Saturday morning and found his older brother standing there in nothing but a towel. I froze. He looked up from pouring his coffee, blinked once, and smirked. Well, morning. Jesus, I muttered, shielding my eyes like that would erase the damage already done. Didn't know anyone was home. He chuckled, low, smooth, not nearly as embarrassed as he should have been. Brandon said you were out of town. Changed plans, I mumbled, reaching blindly toward the cupboard for a mug. Didn't realize it came with a free show. He didn't move, just leaned one hip against the counter, steam curling around his coffee. You always this shy in the morning? I didn't answer. Couldn't. My brain was still short-circuiting. Carter, my roommate's brother, was one of those guys you never really get used to seeing. Tall, swimmer build, the kind of face that always looks vaguely sun-kissed. He used to drop by once or twice a month when he was in town. Sometimes they'd drink beers on the balcony or yell at football on the TV. I usually kept my distance, quietly crushing on him from afar, telling myself it didn't mean anything. Now he was here, half naked, dripping water on our kitchen tile. I'll go throw something on, he said finally, still grinning as he padded off toward the bathroom. I didn't breathe until I heard the door click shut. I poured my coffee and sat at the table, trying to will my heart back to normal. This wasn't a big deal. He was just visiting. Probably heading out soon, except he wasn't. He reappeared 5 minutes later in sweatpants and a worn hoodie, barefoot, hair still damp, and plopped across from me like this was normal. Like we did this all the time. You always this jumpy? I glanced up. Only when strangers wander around half naked in my apartment. Stranger? He repeated, mock offended. Ouch. I mean, we've barely spoken. He sipped his coffee, eyes never leaving mine. Guess we should fix that, huh? That was the start. We didn't talk about Brandon, or why Carter was staying the weekend alone. We didn't talk about the awkward towel situation either. But the conversation kept flowing, casual at first, then deeper, slower, almost like we forgot we weren't supposed to know each other that well. By the time he stood to rinse his mug, I'd caught myself watching the way his shirt clung to his back, the way his laugh came a half second before his smile. I told myself it was just proximity, just hormones. But then, as he passed behind me, he paused. I felt the heat of his body for just a second too long. And then, barely above a whisper, he said, "Glad your plans changed," and walked off down the hall. The rest of the day passed in this strange, slow rhythm, like the air in the apartment had shifted just a little warmer somehow, thicker. Carter mostly kept to the living room, half watching a basketball game on mute while scrolling his phone. I holed up in my room, pretending to catch up on emails, but mostly just replaying that moment in the kitchen. Glad your plans changed. Why did he say it like that? By late afternoon, I gave up pretending to be productive and wandered back out. He was stretched across the couch now, long legs hanging off the edge, hoodie sleeves pushed up, looking very at home. You hungry? I asked. He looked up, grinned. Starving. We ordered Thai, 2 curries, some spring rolls, and way too much rice. We sat cross-legged on the floor to eat, TV playing some dumb reality show neither of us cared about. He asked about my job, my favorite movie, whether I'd ever broken a bone. It felt like a date. It wasn't, but it felt like one. At one point, he nudged my knee with his and said, "You're not what I expected." Expected? He nodded, chewing. Brendan talks about you like you're just this quiet guy who stays in his room. But you're kinda funny. Kinda? He smirked. Okay, funny. We finished dinner and lingered. At some point, I leaned back against the couch and stretched my legs out, and his foot pressed lightly against mine. Not on purpose, I told myself. But he didn't move it either. He looked over, slower this time. not smiling now, just watching me. I always thought you were cute, he said, voice low. I blinked. Wait, what? Carter didn't look away. I mean, I never said anything. Didn't seem like something I should mess with. But, yeah. My mouth went dry. Brandon's roommate? I said, trying to make a joke of it. He shrugged, smile barely there now. Didn't say it was smart, just true. I didn't know what to say. My brain was stuck somewhere between, is this really happening and don't mess this up? And then, gently, his foot moved again. Just enough to press fully against mine this time. A small thing, but not small at all. We sat like that, quiet. Something building between us. And then his phone buzzed. He checked it, sighed, and sat up straighter. That was Brandon, he said. He's not coming back tonight. Oh, said he met someone at the wedding, crashing at her place. I nodded slowly. Carter didn't move. Neither did I. He looked at me, something unspoken hanging in the space between us. Then, softly, you cool with that? With what? Us being here, alone. I didn't answer right away. Just held his gaze, then, yeah. I'm cool with it. He nodded once. Cool. But neither of us moved. Not yet. We cleaned up dinner in slow motion. Neither of us saying much, but everything feeling louder somehow. The clatter of plates. The hum of the fridge. His shoulder brushing mine at the sink, just for a second too long. After, we drifted back into the living room like we didn't know what else to do with ourselves. The TV was still on, playing a rerun of some show neither of us liked, but neither of us reached for the remote. I sat on one end of the couch. Carter sat on the other. A stretch of space between us, barely 2 feet. But it felt massive. I tried not to stare at him. I really did. But he was sitting with one arm thrown over the back of the couch, hoodie slightly pulled up at the wrists, exposing that vein along his forearm that always did something to me. His legs were spread, one knee bouncing lazily. He looked relaxed, but his eyes kept flicking toward me, like he was checking if I was looking too. I was. He caught me once, smirked. What? Nothing, I said quickly. He tilted his head, still watching me. You're acting weird. You're not exactly helping. He laughed, quiet and warm. You always this flustered? Only when my roommate's brother decides to flirt with me in my own apartment. Was I flirting? I stared at him. Seriously? He held up his hands like he was innocent. But his smile said otherwise. And then, just like that, he stood, walked the 2 steps over to my end of the couch, and sat down next to me. Not close, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat coming off him. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. His tone was softer now, serious. Can I ask you something? Sure. Did you know? Know what? That I was into you, he said. Before today. I blinked. No, I mean, I thought maybe, but I didn't let myself believe it. He nodded slowly. Makes sense. Why now? I asked. Why say something today? He leaned back, one arm resting behind me on the couch now, close enough to graze my neck if I shifted an inch. I don't know, he said. Felt like the right moment. You were standing there in the kitchen with bed hair and that dumb t-shirt, and I just felt it. I looked down. It's not dumb. It's cute. I didn't know what to say to that. My throat was dry. My heart was beating way too fast, and then his fingers brushed the back of my neck. Just barely. It was like a switch flipped. I looked up, and he was already closer, his knee against mine, his eyes locked on mine. This okay? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. Yeah. And then, slowly, he leaned in. His lips met mine. Soft at first, hesitant, but when I didn't pull away, he kissed me again. And this time, it landed. He tasted like mint and takeout spice, warm and careful. His hand slid from the back of my neck to my jaw, guiding me closer, and I let him. My hands found his hoodie, fingers curling in the fabric. We weren't rushing, but there was heat building beneath every slow movement. By the time we pulled back, my chest was tight, and his thumb was still on my jaw, tracing the line like he didn't want to stop touching me. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," he said quietly. "Me too." I breathed. We didn't say anything after that, just sat there, knees touching, breath catching in sync. And then, without another word, he leaned in and kissed me again. After that kiss, those first few, slow, careful ones, we didn't talk much. We didn't need to. We just sort of settled into the moment. He leaned back, tugged me with him until I was curled against his side, my head tucked beneath his chin. His hand rested on my shoulder, warm and still. The TV kept playing in the background, forgotten. It felt like we'd known each other longer than we actually had. Or maybe it was just the way we'd hovered around each other all these years. Passing glances during his visits, small talk in the hallway, subtle tension I'd written off as wishful thinking. Now it wasn't wishful anymore. I could feel his heart beating where my cheek pressed against his chest. Not racing, just steady, comforting. "You okay?" he asked eventually, his voice low, fingers brushing the back of my neck. "Yeah," I said. "Just didn't expect this." "Me neither," he admitted. He pulled the blanket from the back of the couch and draped it over both of us, then settled in like he wasn't going anywhere. I didn't either. It was late, and we were technically still in the living room, but neither of us brought up moving. The world outside felt like it could wait. At some point, he shifted and pulled me closer. My leg draped over his now, bodies fully pressed together under the blanket. It wasn't sexual. Not really. It was something quieter, something that made me feel safe in a way I hadn't expected from him. "I used to think about this," I said quietly, not sure why I was admitting it. "When you'd visit, when you'd fall asleep on the couch and I'd sneak out for water just to look." He didn't laugh, didn't tease me. He just said, "I know. I think I used to leave the door open on purpose." That made my heart skip. He looked down at me. "I always hoped you'd say something. I didn't think you'd want to hear it." He nodded. "That's fair." The silence between us turned softer after that, like we'd broken through something. He ran his fingers through my hair slowly. I closed my eyes. Then he said, "I leave again on Monday." I didn't move. "Just for a week," he added. "Work trip." But I wanted to say it, before this turns into something we don't talk about. I finally looked up. "I don't want it to be just a weekend thing." "Me either," he said immediately. "That's what I'm trying to say." And the way he looked at me, serious, grounded, maybe even a little scared, it felt more intimate than anything else we'd done. "I'm not going to pretend to know what this is yet," he said, "but I know it's not nothing." I nodded. "Same." He kissed my forehead. We didn't say anything else. Eventually, I drifted off with my hand resting on his chest and his arm wrapped around me. And even though it was a tiny couch, and I woke up with a sore neck and one of my legs completely numb, I didn't want to move. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon. I blinked slowly, the unfamiliar weight of a blanket still half draped over me, the couch beneath me stiffer than I remembered. For a second, I wasn't sure if I'd dreamed the whole thing. But then I sat up, stretched, and heard him in the kitchen, humming softly, frying pan sizzling. "Carter." And it all came back. The kiss. The couch. The way he'd held me, like he didn't want to let go. I padded into the kitchen, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. He turned when he saw me and grinned. "Morning. You cook now?" "I do when I'm trying to impress someone." I leaned against the doorway, watching him move. Barefoot again, hoodie sleeves rolled up, hair slightly tousled from sleep. He looked like he belonged there. Like this wasn't a one-time thing. He slid a plate toward me. "Sit, eat." I did. The food was good. Eggs, toast, bacon, nothing fancy, but somehow it tasted better with him across from me. He sat with one leg tucked under him, watching me more than he watched his plate. "So," he said after a few bites, "that wasn't just a sleepover, right?" I shook my head. "Definitely not." "Good," he said. Because I was ready to kiss you again the second you walked in. You're very confident for someone wearing a hoodie that says, Lake George 2009. He grinned. Don't knock the classics. We finished eating, and I started gathering the plates, but he caught my wrist gently. Leave it, he said. Come here. I hesitated, just for a second, then stepped toward him. He pulled me in, arms looping around my waist like it was the easiest thing in the world. I could smell his skin, feel the warmth radiating off him. This okay? He asked. Yeah. Then he kissed me again. Slower this time, like he was memorizing me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't teasing. It was the kind of kiss that felt like it meant something. When we pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. I'm not great at this, he said. Dating, emotions, all that crap. I'm not asking you to be perfect, I said. Just honest. I can do honest. He looked at me like he meant it. The rest of the day passed in that soft, easy way. Little moments that didn't feel like much on their own but added up to something bigger. We played cards. He beat me 3 times in a row. We argued about pizza toppings. We watched half a movie before falling asleep again on the couch, legs tangled under the blanket. Later that night, as we stood brushing our teeth in the same small bathroom, he nudged me with his shoulder. You're gonna have to warn Brandon. About what? He smirked. That his brother's stealing his roommate. I laughed, mouthful of foam. We'll cross that bridge. Carter spit, rinsed, then leaned over and kissed my cheek. Just don't pretend this didn't happen when he gets back. I won't. He looked me in the eye. Promise? Promise. And for once, it didn't feel like something temporary. It felt like the start of something real. Brandon came back Monday afternoon. I'd almost forgotten he existed for a second. How weird is that? But when I heard keys in the lock, followed by his familiar heavy step into the apartment, reality clicked back into place fast. I was on the couch. Carter was sitting close beside me, legs casually propped on the coffee table, looking as comfortable as ever. Brandon paused in the doorway, suitcase in hand, scanning the scene. His eyes bounced from me to his brother, then to the fact that we were definitely sitting way too close for casual. He narrowed his eyes. I leave for 3 days and you two suddenly become best friends? Carter didn't flinch. Something like that. Brandon dropped his bag and walked into the kitchen, grabbing a soda from the fridge. Should I be worried? You moving in now? Tempting, Carter said, then glanced at me. Brandon turned, sipping. Okay, what the hell's going on? I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but Carter beat me to it. I like him. Brandon blinked. Excuse me? Carter stood up slowly, not defensive, just calm. I like him. We hung out. It wasn't planned, but it happened. And before you freak out, it's not just a intimacy or whatever. I wouldn't do that to you. Or him. I was frozen. Brandon was the kind of roommate who left his laundry in the dryer too long and always forgot to buy toilet paper, but he was still my friend. And now this felt like stepping into dangerous territory. He looked at me next. Is this real? I nodded. Yeah, it is. Brandon didn't say anything for a long time. Just leaned against the counter, processing. Finally, he said, You gonna start sneaking around behind my back? No, I said. We didn't sneak. I just didn't know how to bring it up. He looked between us, then let out a long breath. I mean, it's weird as hell, but you're adults. Just don't make it awkward when it goes bad. It's not gonna go bad, Carter said quickly. Brandon raised an eyebrow. Dude, you broke up with your last girlfriend because she used your toothbrush once. She used it after chili. Still. We all laughed a little. The tension finally cracked, and the rest of the conversation turned into sarcasm and eye rolls, and Brandon muttering something about, Great, now you're both gonna start giggling in the kitchen like a Hallmark movie. Later, when he disappeared into his room, Carter turned to me. That went better than expected. Only mildly traumatic. He smiled and bumped my shoulder. You good? Yeah. Still want this? I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I do. He leaned in, kissed me quickly, then pulled back before Brandon could reappear and catch us. I'll be back next weekend, he said. Maybe stay the whole time. I smiled. You better. And just like that, we'd gone from something unspoken to something real. Something that didn't need hiding anymore. Something that looked a lot like the beginning of us. Carter did come back that next weekend. And the one after that. And then, somehow, we weren't just two guys who kissed on a couch and made breakfast the next morning. We were something more. We didn't call it anything at first. Just kept texting, talking, staying over. Falling into this rhythm that felt so natural it was almost scary. By the third weekend, he had a toothbrush in my bathroom. By the fourth, he brought a duffel bag instead of just throwing clothes in a backpack. It wasn't always perfect. Sometimes he'd get quiet out of nowhere, like something was pulling him into his own head. Sometimes I'd overthink every glance or silence, worried I was imagining how real it all felt. But then he'd reach out, grab my hand in the middle of a movie, kiss the top of my head after brushing his teeth, sit too close on purpose when Brandon was around, just to see if I'd blush. And I always did. One night, we stayed in. Ramen, a dumb action movie, the couch all ours. He was sitting behind me, arms wrapped around my waist, chin hooked over my shoulder. Halfway through the movie, he mumbled against my neck. "This is my favorite part." I laughed. "The car chase?" "No," he said. "You, here." I turned a little, trying to see his face. "You getting soft on me?" He shrugged. "Maybe," a beat passed. Then he said, "You're the first guy I've ever felt this with. Like, actually felt it. Not just attraction, not just fun." I stayed quiet, letting him say it. He went on. "I didn't know how to talk about it before, with anyone. But with you, it's like, if I don't say it, I'll regret it. You don't have to rush," I said gently. "I'm not," he said. "I'm just telling the truth." I shifted around so I could face him, legs pulled under me. He looked nervous. Not scared, exactly, but exposed. Like he was waiting for me to laugh it off or change the subject. I didn't. Instead, I reached out, took his hand, and said, "I feel it too." His eyes softened. He looked down at our hands, then back up at me. "I don't want this to be temporary," he said. "It doesn't feel temporary." "Good," he whispered. Then, after a long pause, "Do you think we should tell people?" "We kind of already are. I mean, tell. Not just your roommate and my weird timing." I thought about it. About what it would mean for us to walk into a bar holding hands, to post a picture, to exist out loud. "I'm okay with it," I said. "If you are." He nodded slowly. "I think I want to be." And then, like he couldn't hold it in anymore, he leaned in and kissed me. Slow, sure, full of something heavier than anything we'd shared so far. When we pulled apart, I rested my forehead against his and said, "You're gonna ruin all future roommates for me, you know." He laughed. "Don't need another. You're stuck with me now." And for the first time, that didn't sound scary. It sounded perfect. Spring turned into summer. We didn't mark an exact anniversary. There was no official start date for us, but at some point, it didn't matter. Everyone around us started to notice. Carter stopped pretending he was just crashing when he stayed over. Brandon adjusted faster than expected, started teasing us about who used more hot water and who stole whose socks. We met each other's friends, slowly, carefully. At first, it was small things, drinks with my coworkers, a friend of his from college dropping by. Then one weekend, he invited me to meet his mom. Just casual, he said. Just brunch. It wasn't casual. I was nervous as hell, and he could tell. The whole train ride there, he kept rubbing his thumb against mine, whispering things like, "You've got this, and she's gonna love you," And somehow she did. Afterwards, we walked along the sidewalk holding iced coffees and each other's hands, and I realized something simple and huge at the same time. I was happy. Not infatuated. Not buzzing from some new fling high. Just genuinely, quietly, deeply happy. And so was he. One night, lying in bed, his arms slung across my chest, breathing even and slow, I whispered, "You ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't canceled that trip?" His voice was thick with sleep. All the time. And? He shifted, pulled me in tighter. "I'd still find you. Maybe not that weekend, but eventually." I smiled into the dark. "That's romantic." "It's true," he murmured. "You were already in my head." That weekend just gave me an excuse to admit it. We didn't talk about the future in big dramatic terms. There were no declarations of forever, but we started using we more than I. He kept his spare key in my drawer. I kept my sweatshirt in his bag. We made dinner together more often than we ate out. And one Sunday night, as we were folding laundry, him holding up my underwear like a game show prize and laughing, I caught myself thinking, this is it. Not in a settling kind of way, not in an I guess this will do way, but in a this is what it's supposed to feel like kind of way. The ease, the honesty, the way he looked at me like I was something worth sticking around for. He caught me staring and raised an eyebrow. "What?" I shook my head, smiling. "Nothing. Just glad you showed up in my kitchen that day." He stepped forward, kissed me slow and soft. "Glad you stayed home."